So today we're going to have a community call, which is basically us discussing any kind of topics that are interesting to the community or to our development process for the future with, yeah, people that wanted to join us today. And I would like to start with a really short introduction round. So I'm Foy from Isinga. I'm the development advocate, and I'm going to try to, yeah, guide us all through the call today. I would just hand off to Blerim for the first participant from Isinga.
Yeah, hi everyone. Thanks for joining. Thanks Foy for organizing first of all. Yeah, I'm Blerim. I'm CPO at Isinga, and yeah, well, I take care of many different small things basically, um, like planning, organizing product stuff, all these things. And I would like to hand over to Eric.
Thanks, Blerim. Yeah, my name is Eric, and Blerim is organizing the product, and we're also doing strategy together. I'm responsible for the technical role in the whole Isinga ecosystem. And I don't know who wants to take over, but I'm just going with Stefan, if that's okay. No, he left. Okay, so I'm going with Nicolas. If you want to introduce yourself, go ahead.
Hi, my name is Nicolas, and I really like Isinga. It's a very special software. I have to say it works like a charm, but sometimes it doesn't. But it's great. It's really great. Yeah, thanks for that great piece of work.
Okay, do you want to hand over to someone else?
Me?
Yeah.
Okay. So, Florian, would you like to continue?
Hello, my name is Florian. I'm from Germany, and I'm using Zynga in our company. Stefan is a colleague of mine, by the way. I just think he left because he got a call, and he will be back in a few minutes, I guess. We're using Zynga in a Azure constellation, I would say. So two masters in Azure, and our satellites in the customer's environment. And yeah, I'm happy to be here, and I'm happy that I could find the time. And then I would give over to Pantelis, I guess. I hope I didn't murder that word.
Yeah, that was right. It's okay. Hello, everyone. My name is Pantelis Burokas. I'm working at Atos, and I'm responsible for one big Isinga 2 instance, and more are planned in the future. I'm working with Isinga 2 right from the beginning on better days. So yeah, I've collected some experience in the last few years. So I would give up to Sahil.
Yeah, hello everyone. Yes, so I am Sahil, and I am working with A4 Technologies, and currently we are using Isinga setup for monitoring the AWS servers. So we are monitoring the AWS servers on Isinga, and yes, currently we are using it. Yes, thank you.
Okay, I think that's everyone in the call for now. So we prepared a few topics that
Nice shirt.
Oh, really nice shirt.
Thank you.
We prepared a few topics that got sent to us from the community forum, people that would like those issues discussed. And I would just start in with the first one that we've prepared, and that was, how can the community help resolve the issue with missing binaries for rel derivatives? So Alma, Rocky, CentOS, etc. And I just wanted to start off with asking you guys if you have any specific issues surrounding that topic. Like, does anyone go into that? I think Pantelis, you
Yeah.
just unmute yourself.
Yeah, it's a long topic going on from the beginning of the year since the announcement from your side that because of the streaming release, the rolling releases of Red Hat and CentOS, you won't continue to support those packages. We get in contact with our customer and had a lot of discussion what we go and what we will do in the future. Finally, we decided to get a subscription for the repository only, and it's on the way. I hope we get in the next couple days or weeks finally the subscription and can update the servers. They're begging for new packages, and I DB. So because yeah, it's not released before that. So, but yeah, for the future, a lot of discussions, Atos internal, what we will do, because we did the decision to stay with Rocky Linux, and we have in a lot of customers the same problem. So, how to provide packages? We have an internal software development team that build packages also for our customers. This is one of the options we have in mind.
Okay, so your new operating system of choice would be Rocky Linux, and for most of your customers, do you know if they are also using Alma, CentOS, or other alternatives?
They not from the open source. There are a lot of customers using Red Hat Enterprise Linux, and for the others, we are using CentOS, Rocky. The decision was for Rocky.
Okay. It's always interesting for us to hear what people are going to use going forward for this. Do we have any other people here that did do the switch lately? The Jitsi also has a really neat hand up feature. It's in the bottom of the screen. So if you want to speak and you don't want to talk over someone, you can just click the button and we'll see. Oh, I just saw Stefan joined us. Do you also want to say hello really quick? Your microphone is still muted, I think. Yeah, okay. Maybe we'll figure it out. I would instead hand over to Blarim for now, because we are also in the process of thinking about what's going to happen in the future. And yeah, do you want to say something about that?
Yeah, totally. Yeah, of course, as you mentioned, that's not a new discussion anymore. I kind of would like to perhaps separate this topic into multiple, how do I call it, areas, perhaps, because I believe that it has multiple facets, and the requirements surrounding this discussion in general are very different from the persons discussing. So first of all, of course, there has been this business-related decision to create this repository subscription in order to provide packages for enterprise Linux, Amazon Linux 2, and SUSE Enterprise Linux. And the very basic idea behind it is that companies which use Icinga commercially in a larger environment, these are the target group where we believe can afford to support Icinga financially by purchasing something. So that's the very basic idea behind this. The switch has been made at a time where CentOS 8 was basically end of life. announced by Red Hat, which on the other hand, for us, makes it near to impossible to provide packages for CentOS 8. So if an operating system is end of life, we also have to stop provide packages for it, just in general. I mean, it's the same for Ubuntu, Debian, and whatever, because we do not try to support an operating system that is not supported by the vendor in general. And then multiple successors, well, so-called successors of CentOS came up, where Rocky Linux, I guess, is one of the most popular ones right now. I think there's also Alma. There's also Oracle Linux and so on. And on the other hand, there is Red Hat's, I just call it successor, which they call CentOS Stream, but CentOS Stream is like, it's not binary compatible with Red Hat anymore. So for us, we basically have to deal with CentOS Stream like it's a completely new operating system, because we cannot just use the old packages on there anymore, because there's no guarantee they will just work. So there is this one part of that business decision to create this repository subscription, which includes certain services where we aim to not close software per se, but rather have the idea to sell kind of services, which in this case is packaging services, usually to larger companies. That's basically the target group. The other topic is, what about CentOS Stream, which I would like to just exclude for a minute and maybe come back to that later in a perhaps separate discussion. In the meantime, of course, it concerns us that there are users out there where they have smaller environments, which are not our target group for business. I'm basically talking about community users running small environments, perhaps even developing something for Isinga, plugins, modules, or whatever on those enterprise Linuxes. And they are kind of excluded now because they don't have access to those packages. And at the same time, we don't even want money from them because, as mentioned, that's not the target group for the business. And therefore, we've been working on how we can solve that. So how can we, at the same time, ask large companies to pay money for that, and at the same time give it for free to those community users, where we don't even want something back. So right now we are preparing something that we will call development subscription. Basically, it's a how do I say, it's access at no cost to those repositories for a limited size of an environment. So while we separate those operating systems in the repo subscription, the next step would be to separate the larger environments from the smaller one, and hopefully cover, perhaps not all, because that's pretty difficult, because we cannot look into the infrastructure, but include more people from the community and give them access to the repos at no cost. It will be a limited number of nodes, somewhere between 15 and 20, somewhere there. Most likely will be something like 20. We aim to finalize that offer most likely by the end of this month, and hopefully relax that situation for many people, starting from November somewhere. So that's the first point. But since it's not ready yet, I mean, I'm happy to discuss it. But since it's not ready yet, there's no public announcement about it. But it will come very soon. And the other part of the discussion is, how do we handle the change from CentOS to CentOS Stream? And generally speaking, we believe that for us, it makes total sense to provide packages for as many operating systems as possible, of course. But at the same time, it's kind of a matter of resources and money and time. And adding a new operating system for us at the same time means that it's a commitment to provide all of our packages for that new additional operating system over the next few years. And it's hard to decide if we can afford that for CentOS Stream, because it's very hard to find out how the adoption rate of CentOS Stream is. Because on the one side, we would like to do it, but the effort has to be worth it, kind of. And it's very hard to find out, to be honest. There's no way how you can find out if an open source operating system is being used by a majority or not, and especially if it's been used by potential Isinga users. Basically, most likely you can only find out if you just try it out and publish the repo and see what's happening, which is also an option. To be fair, there's no such decision like we will never provide packages for CentOS Stream. It's the other way around. We are more like thinking of, should we do it? Can we afford the effort, basically? I hope that summarizes my monologue a little bit. But please feel free to interrupt me at any point.
That definitely answered the question. And in order to figure out what operating systems we are going to continue on, we always love to get the feedback from you in the call and also from the people maybe watching us. Yeah, so we've already heard Rocky being the most prominent one, so yeah. If there are any other topics or questions that you would like to talk about or you would like to ask us here, feel free to just blurt them out here. If not, I'm just going to hop on to the next point, if there are no questions. And that was...
By the way, maybe one more point to add to that, because it just comes into my mind. Besides of the official repositories that we provide, there are also plenty of community-driven repositories, for example, for FreeBSD, Gentoo, Arch Linux, and some more. I can see that there are efforts from somebody to build RPMs as well, and like for any other operating system or like any other unofficial community-driven repository, we would be happy to link that on our website as well, because we don't believe that it kind of breaks our business or something.
Okay, thanks. Yeah, if there are no more questions to that, I would hop over to the next point, which is how do we integrate Kubernetes environments better into the Isinga universe, basically, and how could we maybe bridge it over to Prometheus systems as well? And my question for you would be, did you or your company or your team build something like that? Did you ever bridge Isinga with Kubernetes or Prometheus? Okay, the next question would be, do you have a need for that? Because it's a topic that has been discussed in the forum quite a few times already, and I was just curious if you or your company, your team, has a need for a Kubernetes integration with Isinga.
What do you mean with integration? We are trying to build the satellite setup in Kubernetes to deploy satellite environments in Azure or AWS and so on. So any of our customers which gets a managed monitoring system, I want to deploy a quite easy way, or I'm looking for a quite easy way to deploy the satellite.
Mhm.
So I have one very simple deployment which seems to work, but there is maybe a lot of work to do to get in production with it.
Yeah, it was a pretty general topic that I picked out there because I don't really have any solution in mind we want to get to. But if Kubernetes and Prometheus are generally, yeah, topics that people would like us to focus on more. So what you said, now I'm struggling for words. It's interesting to see what you do with those topics and with Isinga. I'm struggling right now. um,
So is that what you described? Do you use that already, or are you currently experimenting?
We are in an experimental phase, so there is some parts are working very fine.
Yeah.
Some other parts I have some struggle, but I think it's more in a Kubernetes way. I
Mm.
struggle like if conditions when there is only one master or one satellite. Or it's I think it's more an issue with the organization of how to deploy the services.
Mm. But you kind of created your own images
Yeah,
from scratch, and
from
yeah, okay.
scratch.
Because I mean, perhaps Eric knows more technical details about, or not perhaps, he definitely knows more technical details about it, but we've been building Docker images for Isinga 2, Isinga Web, and Isinga DB for a while now. And yeah, I kind of remember that there are certain points where we have to work around some things.
Did you try to use our images, or did you just start from scratch?
I just started from scratch.
Okay.
I use Ubuntu 2204
Mm.
as base image, and I installed some check plugins I need to have. So just to combine it, it's more work than to create a new container image. And then I used some post start scripts for connection with the masters and the certification things.
Yeah, I think basically, I mean, you could use our Docker image, of course, and just use that as a base instead of using Ubuntu as a base, for example. So I think it's, I don't know which operating system it is, but I think it's also Debian or Ubuntu, which we are using in our images. So you could definitely just use that and install your plugins after that. But what we are figuring out at the moment is how to adjust our Docker images for exactly what you've said. So having a Docker image which supports multiple roles. So it could be a master, or it could be a satellite which does something with certificates or not. There is some configuration which should be mounted into. Is there a director? So there's no configuration needed, and all that stuff you have to configure. You can configure, basically without running a Docker image and just having the package installation. It has to be looked at for Docker images as well. And at the moment, we just have the option to include a whole configuration directory instead of maybe just mounting a zones configuration directory or stuff like that. So that is something we're working on. And I want to say, feel free to try our images, and maybe you have feedback for us, which we could make better in order for you to use it, right? I mean, we would look at it and see if it if it's good for the general approach how our images should work. But yeah, would be cool. Yeah, if you would try ours.
I will give a try.
Okay, cool.
Maybe one thing that comes into my mind right now, because we've been discussing that, I think last week or the week before, how should we, so it's an open question, how should we handle plugins within a official Isinga image? And it's still like unsolved right now. It's not unsolved because we have one, right now we install everything that we have in the ITL, which kind of makes sense because we say, well, we have the Isinga template library that provides check commands. And if you install Isinga, it would be nice if you just could use all of these commands. So we install all plugins that are provided with the ITL. On the other hand, most likely in production environments, if someone uses our image, they will use it as a base image and build something on top of it. So of course, there's no way we could provide just the right plugins for every use case. What do you do in your environment when you deploy such a satellite?
I just use the plugins I know that I use in every customer situation. And then I extend my plugin folder with the check commands I really need.
And do you kind of have a base image and then build the plugins on top? Yeah, okay.
Okay, and the next question in this pot was already like, would you like to collaborate on it? So sending your performance data, your environment, and yeah, your use cases with, I mean, what we've provided so far with our document images, for example. But are there other ways you can think of that you maybe want to help out with? Maybe you could also share what you've built so far, and we could have a look at it.
Maybe one other thing. You currently have a Kubernetes environment, right?
Yep.
How do you monitor that?
In most of the cases, it's a K3s single node cluster or AKS.
Okay. So it's something completely separate.
This is the next issue I have
Mm-hmm.
to monitor the local Kubernetes instances. I think it's Prometheus, which I will need or provide to monitor the local instances.
But now that sounds strange, but if you could wish for something, what would you expect from, because we are thinking of these things as well, of course. And the question is, what would someone expect from a Kubernetes monitoring?
It's a really hard question.
Yeah, we know.
When I have a wish list, something like a pod importer would be great to monitor what is the state of my pods. That would be amazing. Just a little automatization
Yeah.
of what workloads are in my Kubernetes cluster and are they monitored? Because it's a very agile infrastructure. Maybe one day we have 10 pods, the next day we have 20, the next day we have 15. That's quite hard for classical infrastructure monitoring to deal with.
Just to this point, I'm not familiar with Kubernetes in deep, but we are using a director with the vSphere plugin and import also all the VMs from our vSphere. And those changes day by day. uninstalled 20, new build up, and it's a lot of movement inside. And we have a job that runs every 30 minutes and actually do the renewal. Yeah, we have some times where systems just shut down and we're not getting the update in right time, so the notification comes out. This is the only thing, but from there on, I think maybe this is something with a really close interval of pulling informations from Kubernetes could maybe fit in this situation.
Mm-hmm. You're right. So yeah, I agree. It would not cover 100% all cases, kind of. The only difference between a VMware environment and a Kubernetes environment that I could see in that thing is that I would believe that a Kubernetes environment, in many cases, it's much more dynamic than a private cloud environment. So I agree that a private cloud also changes, kind of, also perhaps in minutes. But I would guess that a Kubernetes environment often is even more dynamic and flexible in terms of changes. So polling could be difficult because perhaps you will miss too much.
So pushing would be the better thing when there is an option from Kubernetes to push the information to the director.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we had a look at this some time ago, and we didn't do anything. But we thought it may be a good idea to have a operator, a Icinga operator, which just subscribes to the etcd events, or let's say Kubernetes API events. And there you have, let's say, CRUD events, so create, not just cut, so create, update, delete events. And you can just register on that for all types a Kubernetes cluster knows, so whatever storage, pods, devices, and so on. And you could just keep track of that via the events, and the operator could synchronize that into a database on its own. So, like for example, the Icinga DB does with the Icinga configuration, but event-based. And then, yeah, we could have a front end on that, and that would cover maybe the pod status and stuff like that. But no, that would be there would be no Icinga configuration. So you wouldn't have notifications, SLA reporting, and all that stuff, which comes when you would have a Icinga 2 object. But of course, one could have a director import on that source as well, so that you create actual hosting services out of that. Yeah, but we did nothing in this regard yet. Yeah, go ahead, Nicholas.
I don't know much about Kubernetes either, but I think there should be an API or something to list all the pods, and it would be quite easy to write just a single check plugin that queries all the pods and checks their capacity. And then you're back in the Icinga infrastructure to create alerts.
Yeah, sure. So yeah, a basic check plugin could be list all pods, see if some is failed, and then just alert based on that. Yeah, that would be a easy integration. That's true.
Okay, so I love that we're trying to figure out solutions here. So that was really helpful. If there's nothing,
there is even something like that. Sorry for interrupting.
Go ahead.
I just start talking when it comes to my mind. There is even something similar on Icinga Exchange, which can do exactly this basically. So by leveraging the Kubernetes API, monitor different parts of it, including pods. The only problem with that would be, so it could work quite well for parts of Kubernetes where you know they already exist. Keeping this up to date may be a challenge depending on how dynamically those pod services and so on are getting created and removed. Just a thought.
Yeah. Is there anything else you want to add?
No, I will just interrupt you again when I start thinking.
All right, I would just hop over to the last topic that we had prepared for today, and that was collaboration on content. So we know that a lot of people write content, be it plugins, modules, or integrations for Isinga, both in their company but also just in their free time for open source reasons. And I just want to say, like, from my perspective, I'm always happy to post guest blog posts, for example, on the blog, or provide visibility for some interesting modules, or things that you have created with Isinga. So you can always come to Isinga if you found something cool, either via the website or on Twitter. So we can help you promote whatever you did. But yeah, so if you have anything, feel free to reach out. And I would also like to hear from you if you maybe have an idea on how we can make it easier for people to share what they created, apart from Isinga Exchange, for example, what we already have. And yeah, the leading question would be, do you have any of your own developments that you would like to share with us?
In my particular case, I have created some check plugins or scripts that send passive notification to Isinga 2. There are quite technology specific, like monitoring InfiniBand switch infrastructure and send back if there are new leaf switches created. I've tried to find to look on the internet and search for something like this, but didn't find anything that fits the needs of my team. So we created something that do the job for us. It scans the IBM environment and checks if there are new leaf switches or some leaf switches are not responding, and send the particular information back to Isinga as a passive check. Yeah.
Leaves? You mean by leaves in terms of spanning tree?
Yes, we have a quite big InfiniBand environment, and there are a lot of leaf switches that switching around because they're getting broken and need to be switched up. So we get new information with new serial numbers and new how it's called inside this. There's an ID. I forgot the name about, but we need to match serial number and ID with this. And this gives us the assurance that there is a new one. So yeah, this is one thing I created in case.
Okay, just because I'm curious on like your experience with creating it, did you like how hard was it for you to figure out how to get to the point to write that? Like, did you find any helpful tutorials, or was there anything missing that you wished we would have documented on the development?
The easiest part was to send the passive notification to iSinger2. Yeah, with IP credentials that's made on the master, it's quite easy to send the notifications back. So the harder part was to figure out how to write down the script to get all the information from the InfiniBand environment. So in this case, I would say it was good documented and easy. I need to go on the door. Give me a minute.
Sure.
Sure. I mean, I'm already glad to hear that it was easy from our side, so. So from everyone else in the call, did you write any things for Isinga and have like some feedback on what we could improve, documentation-wise, tutorial-wise?
The documentation how to write the Singer Web 2 modules, it's well, not really there. It's not very much to build something on it, but at least there are many modules you can get inspired of. And then it's something like copy and paste and using what they have used to create something that looks like a module. But a really good tutorial on how to write the Singer Web 2 modules, well, I couldn't find that on the net.
There's something in the making, I would say, and there's several stuff. We have a iSinger Web 2 module showcase beneath the iSinger GitHub namespace, which is quite outdated, of course. And then we have the iSinger Web 2 module training, which showcases how to write a module, which is also outdated at the moment. But we are preparing a pull request. Well, we have prepared a pull request, which gets updates quite regularly across the past weeks and days, where we've updated the instructions, documentation, and all that stuff to all the new libraries we've released over the last months, I would say. So you should definitely have a look at that one and give feedback for what's missing and so on. That would be great. So I just shared it in the chat.
There's also been a blog post on that topic. I think it was last week or this week on the libraries on the IPL. And I feel like in the different parts of the libraries and their repositories, there's also quite a good start, or yeah, some guidance on how to start using them. But the idea with looking at the other modules is actually really good. So thanks for sharing that. So yeah, looking at my list of topics, I'm at the end of what I have prepared or what we have prepared topic-wise. And if you have anything else you would like to talk about, this is now your chance. Feel free to speak up. Oh, yeah, Pantelis?
Okay. I had something in my mind for a long time. I will try to introduce a little bit the environment where I'm working in. I have a customer, and we have a lot of teams working for this customer in different projects. Every team have his own iSinger2 instance. And everyone on the teams have a little bit iSinger2 experience. I would say I'm one of those who are a little bit deeper into the materia and would like to have a master instance where I can organize all those and do the care work like patching and stuff, because they just run the iSinger2 instance. They do not do any module updates. They not care about patches and so on. But I would like to do. And maybe you have also see a foreman maybe and you can do the split between organizations. So any organization have his own view on this stuff. So when you have an Icinga, you can put people in an organization, and he have his own systems where he can see. But you have only one Icinga web where everyone goes into. So this is something I would really appreciate to have someday. And maybe you also think about something like that in development, but this is something it would help me and the teams to care about our Icinga 2 instance better.
Do they add configuration to to their Icinga node, or are you also managing the configuration? So what is monitored and how it is monitored?
It depends a little bit on the project. The most people have the standard monitoring stuff, like whatever comes with the ITL, and that's fine for them. A few teams need some custom things, like I mentioned before with the InfiniBand monitoring, and we're creating a lot of stuff around. It depends on the needs, actually. And I would have a single point where any team can come to, and we develop this and have the overview of all teams and say, hey, wait, you don't need to develop this. We have this already built for the other team, so you can use this. So to have a single point, in other words, I would like to have a team that care about all the monitoring stuff, but not on different instances around the network. So I had like a master instance where everyone can log in, but see only his organization.
That's already possible, I would say.
Okay.
So, I mean, that's why I kind of asked so are they allowed to actually change configuration? Because if they are, then it gets a little bit trickier. But now let's imagine you run the infrastructure, right? And people just want to see their stuff, and they just want to do downtimes, acknowledgements, and so on. Then you could do the following. Either you have a host group
Yes.
where the hosts are in, or you have a specific custom variable which says this is tenant or whatever policy. I don't know, some identification where you say, okay, this belongs to customer X, and then you have your user management in Icinga Web, where you add Active Directory, databases, whatever you do, and then you configure roles. And then you have roles for and I just call them tenants. No, I just call them customers. Then you have roles for your specific customers. And then you say, okay, I have a role for my customer ABC. I have a customer ABC, and I give them a restriction in the IcingaDB or the monitoring module and say, this customer with the certain users and user groups are restricted to a filter, and the filter could be host.vars.customer equals ABC. And after that, if the user logs in and gets the role applied, then he can only see the objects which have the custom variable customer set to ABC, or only see the hosts which belong to a certain host group, or only see the hosts where the notification contact is the actual logged in username, stuff like that. Yeah, so viewing wise, this would be no problem. And also then command wise. So you can also go deeper and then say, okay, this user is also allowed to do acknowledgements, downtimes, or not.
So the problem.
Did you know that? Or
Actually not.
okay.
I could just add one more thing, because the same, or not the very same, but a similar filtering mechanism is also available for director if you're using that.
True. You're right.
But I'm not certain about if it works the very same way, but there is definitely an option for director permissions to limit users where they can see and modify only certain parts.
True,
Okay.
you're right. Yeah, I forgot about that one. Yeah, correct. So I would say there's definitely the option if your tenants or customers or whatever we call them do not have to have access to the actual infrastructure. It's perfectly fine to have just a single entry point for Icinga Web and all the modules, and then have, let's say, authorization or role management in Icinga Web in order to separate them. And that is already built in and used quite often, I would say. So it's the permission and restriction system where Icinga Web and modules provide permissions and restrictions. So like permissions allowing something, allowing to edit a host, allowing to schedule a downtime, whatever, and restrictions to limiting certain users to a certain set of objects by using a filter.
Okay, this with the filter is
yeah.
something new to me, but I will have a look into.
Okay, cool.
Another thing that I could think of is that because you mentioned maintenance work, we recently started to provide packages for modules as well. So lately we had a small release of Icinga Cube where we started to ship packages for it and also for Icinga Director. And the goal is during the next weeks and months to provide packages for every of our Icinga modules. So every next release of any of our modules, and there are some planned, will come with ready-to-use packages. So installation and updates and so on will become much easier.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Would you say that answered your question?
Yes, I will try it out and we'll discuss this again if I'm stuck in the community forums or maybe next month in the OSMC when I see a few of you.
Oh, yeah, cool.
Yeah, right. That's in a month already. Cool. So, are there any other questions from you guys? Is there anything open that you thought of?
One thing, I think it's a very old topic, the notification manager. There's an amazing thing which started maybe in 2016 or earlier. Are there any resources which are working on this topic, or is it dead? Or
I already love that question.
because notification is a very big thing, and if I remember in the right way, there was planned that some users can access to queues and get the message in the right way, which they need to know. Now we have lots of notification templates and apply rules, and I'm not sure if it's the best way, or how do others face this topic.
Blair, do you want to tell us a
Yeah,
little bit?
yeah. I
It's
can
your turn.
because I was kind of happy to hear you ask about notification manager. I wouldn't have been happy about that a year ago, but but actually we finally come to the point where we restarted that project. So what's the current state? The current state is that we started to build a concept, and that state is already pretty advanced on how a useful notification manager in Icinga Web could look like, including much better usability and some features that we need in order to solve old issues. So our team leads for the core components in Isinga 2 and the web components have been sitting around for a few weeks now together in order to figure out how that technically could look like, because we are kind of rebooting it completely from scratch. It's a pretty old project. So we're not like throwing away our knowledge from the past, but still like rebooting it just with a fresh mind. During the last 2 weeks, we've been having some discussions around certain parts of it. So I expect that during the next few weeks we can kind of create a scope how a first version could look like. I mean, it will have a limited set of features. It will not be like a super big thing from the start. And then actually start developing it. So I don't want to say that it will be ready during the in December, but I'm still pretty happy about the fact that we actually started working on it, and it kind of is our major project for the next couple of months.
That's great to hear.
Yeah.
Because it was really great. I saw a webinar from Christian, and then there was no download, and
Yeah.
I liked to test it, but then it was away.
Yeah.
So great to hear.
Yeah. So it will take a while for sure. It will not take years, of course, but of course a couple of months until we have a first version with some features in it. But yeah, we are as happy as you are.
Amazing.
So, oh yeah, Nicholas, go ahead.
Reading in the forum a lot, I realized that many people using like old or ancient version of Isinga 2 or Isinga Web 2 for the director. Like the most extreme thing I found was like the master build of a director from 2017, and the user was complaining about that it's not working correctly. Is there any recommendation about how old a component should be, especially for Isinga 2?
So we do have an official statement about that. So just let me check that so I get it right.
Something like the current version and the last one.
Correct. So our goal is, or what we actually do is, we provide updates for the last 2 major versions. The official statement is that for the current major versions, we of course provide all updates, and for the prior major version, security updates. But often we also provided bug fixes for the previous version as well. So the latest 2 major versions should do it.
Okay, and in these major versions, is the idea better to early adopt, like Isinga 2.13.5? I think that's the latest, or to wait and postpone an update?
I would recommend to always update bug fix releases. So, we're following semantic versioning. With if we do like feature releases or increase the middle version. So if you're running on 2.13 and re-release 2.14, then you can expect new features or some changes in behavior, I would say. So that is to be expected from a major release, where it's your decision when to install it, because a major upgrade always includes maybe testing it beforehand, which features have been added and what has been changed, or is there some improvement and all the stuff, and how you fast want to get to it. But if you see bug fix releases, I would just install them immediately all the time.
Okay.
So I would not wait on that. for this, and that counts for every product we are releasing. If we do a bug fix release, then the last version will increase, and if you see that, you should just install it.
And one more question regarding to the Singer 2 API. That's also something from the forum. People like exposing their Singer 2 instance from the net. I don't think it's a good idea, but is there any official statement from Isinga? Of course, it can be done, but is there a recommendation against or to it?
I mean, the recommendation, I would say, if you expose it, then you don't know what people do with it. So I don't know if that makes sense, right? Because it's a monitoring tool where you want, a certain limited set of users interact with it and to do stuff you know what's done with, I would say. Exposing it is not an issue per se, since you could certainly configure the API to only allow users with a certificate authentication. So that is quite secure then. But from a usage point of view, I mean, I would not do it, but I can give a recommendation because maybe there is a use case for it. Yeah. But no, I mean, exposing stuff from your infrastructure to the internet is most times not a good idea, I would say.
I totally agree. My recommendation was putting it into a VPN or something, but yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's okay, right? So. Do you know which API actions the user who exposed it or had the need to expose it was done?
I didn't ask. It was just
okay. So because what I always recommend is maybe you could just leverage the Isinga Web 2 API. Since in Isinga Web 2 you have your role management and your user management, and it's certainly fine to have like a web application exposed somewhere instead of a technical API, since the Isinga 2 is a technical API and not a end user API, what the Isinga Web interface would be. And most actions can be done from the Isinga Web 2 API, where you have permissions and restrictions and user management and login and your web server and proxying and all that stuff already for free. So yeah, it always makes sense to have a second thought about that instead of just exposing or using the Isinga API actually to do stuff, maybe to shift over to the Isinga Web API.
Using it, and there is this scenario where you could basically put one Isinga agent somewhere and it calls home to the Isinga node, master node, and it does that via API. And if I open port 5665 on the firewall and forward it to the Isinga monitoring master, then this would work. But it's, I think, not recommended to do so.
I would at least put it in a VPN.
Yes.
At least, yeah. Doing those connections through the internet, perhaps you never know. And as you mentioned before, or maybe it was someone else, people sometimes just forget to update stuff, like having a master from 2017. You could have a agent that is running a very old version of Isinga 2s, and it could have any issues in that API or whatever.
Okay, are there any more questions?
I had one more.
Go ahead.
I would like to have some feature when we are speaking about teams that have a different view on everything. So I can impersonate to a team member and have his look on the Icinga instance and his rights. This is something I think it's quite useful for an administrator to have this view. Yeah. Is there something in your mind in development?
And not in development, but we have an issue for that, and we also think it's useful. But as always, it's a matter of priorities and what we actually want to do and which product we want to put focus on. But it's not something we were totally against. But there's no resource assigned to it. Yeah, let's say in the near future to do it. But I mean, of course, there's the option. I mean, if somebody's listening to like sponsor development or just I need a feature, then of course we're willing to do it faster, right? But for the moment, I would say it's not planned at the moment.
Okay, thank you.
Maybe
Did
one
you
thing
want-
that could help a little bit, it's not like an impersonate, but there's this user audit included, starting with Icinga Web 2.9 or 10. So the most current version has it at least, where you can just search for a user or a group, and you will get a list of their permissions with the exact information where they got this permission from. So for example, if a user has multiple roles assigned and one role permits something and another declines it and so on, you can exactly track where this permission is coming from. Okay, bye.
Okay. I mean, I think that mostly answer that. There he is. Welcome back.
Thank you. I think I get the answer. So one question to this. The audit is a separate module where I need to install?
It's directly, I think it's just directly beneath the
Yeah.
settings where you also configure roles and users and groups. There is is it called audit trail?
Yeah. So
Mhm.
it's in the access control menu, and on the top there's
okay.
There's this audit menu which just is a search field, and you can type in a user or group, and it will do an autocomplete as well. So I think it's a pretty nice way to track complex permission systems.
I mean, you actually see what is applied in the end instead of looking through a certain number of rules on your own. So, but it does not help in okay, how does the view look like, and is this something I would expect? So, but it helps getting towards the idea.
Okay.
All right. I think that's a pretty good finish line for us today, because we're a bit over the planned hour already. And if there are any more open questions or anything, feel free to shoot me a message on the forum and I'll just save them for the next call. Yeah, I would like to thank you all for joining us. And yeah, thanks for being here. Thanks for contributing to the call. And I wish you a wonderful evening.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone. Bye.